All right, all right. Hello, Trayonna. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good. I'm so happy to have you here. Yes, let me. It's a little bit of feedback, so a little bit of a delay. So if I talk over you, I apologize. But I'm so happy that you are here with us today to have this conversation. Another conversation and sharing our stories. Sharing our stories is so important to me personally because I think that when we share the things that we've gone through, our journeys, just experiences, it allows us to not only grow personally by sharing, but also allows other people to grow by hearing what we've gone through. And I really believe sometimes it gives people hope as well, based on what we've gone through to allow other people to see some type of light at the end of that tunnel. Something that tunnel is very dark.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so I'm glad to have you here. So first, I want you to kind of introduce yourself and who you are, and yes, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So, as Miss Erin said, my name is Trayonna Barnes. I am a mental health counselor, CEO, and children's book author located in Cincinnati, Ohio. I went to Northern Kentucky University for my bachelor's, which I had an integrated degree. I studied social work, psychology, and entrepreneurial studies. And then I went to Washington, D.C., where I went to the illustrious Howard University and I studied clinical social work. And then 2 years later, I got my license to become a therapist. So
Awesome,
that's
awesome.
a little bit about me.
I am so proud of you, and I'm a little biased. It's funny because for people that will be listening to the playback, or people that may be listening now, Trayonna, I've known her since she was very, very little, and that's why she calls me Miss Erin. Nobody else calls me that, right? It's so cute. No, I appreciate it, but I'm so proud of the woman that you become, and so I'm really happy to have this conversation with you. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to put this up very quickly to show people too that we may be talking about something that is sensitive, that may trigger some people, and so I'm going to throw this up, occasionally, so people know that it's here and that it may be something that may be sensitive to them. So I want to be sensitive to that. But with that said, I want to get started with our conversation because I think that it is so important for us to talk about this topic and why this topic and this conversation. So today we're going to talk about some childhood trauma, abuse, and child advocacy and healing as well. And I think that right now in the world, everybody is talking about, child advocacy, child abuse,
Yeah.
children being mistreated. That is a hot topic right now, so to speak, but it should always be a topic. We should always be discussing this because children always need us. But I've noticed now recently it is very much a topic of conversation, and people I think are a bit surprised by revelations of things, right? They're surprised that
Mm-hmm.
certain type of darkness happens in the world, right? And I am appreciative of people like you, Trayonna, who work in that field and work kind of in that fight and in that war to help children. So I want to talk about, why do you think this topic is important right now? Why do you think we should talk about this in this conversation?
So, thank you for the question, first of all. I think this is a beautiful discussion. And this topic is very important to bring up right now because childhood trauma, especially untreated childhood trauma, can lead to so many issues within our children, right? So when I heard about this interview, I had to take notes because the topic is so layered and there's so many different effects that happen when childhood trauma is not addressed. So the first is untreated childhood trauma can lead to emotional scars and it causes a delay in emotional processing. So, children that have gone through trauma really have trouble processing anger, processing sadness, even happiness. They may not even be able to identify with happiness yet because of the trauma that they've gone through. It disrupts their sense of safety. So, they can be around, they don't know the difference between an adult that's safe and an adult that's unsafe. As they grow older, they have trust issues. They don't know how to develop healthy relationships. You have children that trust a little bit too much, and children that grow into adults that don't trust at all.
Mm,
You have a lot of things that happen to the physical brain. So this is where we're getting to the sciencey part of it, which I'll
Sure.
you know put throughout the interview. But it affects our hippocampus. It affects um, our language centers. That's another thing, and we can get into that later. But there's
Okay.
so many things that affects the child that makes this conversation so important because they will be adults one day, right? So we want to ensure that they become the best version of themselves as they grow.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that because working with children in the past, I used to work in schools and at different alternative education spaces and detention centers. So I worked with a lot of children that had a lot of trauma, right? A lot
Yes.
of trauma. And it was really hard to unpack at times, right? When you hear what a child has gone through, or you hear, or you read their files and you realize the stuff that they've endured. And then
Mhm.
we tell them to come to school and be students, right? It's like, how could they be a
How?
student? Yes, with life, treating them how it did. And so I want to kind of talk a little bit more about what that can look like. What can trauma look like? Because a lot of times I think people only associate trauma with a child that acts up, right? I mean, we had children that were always, always, always in trouble, so to speak,
Yes.
right? Or angry and acting out. And they were clearly going through something, right? They were
Mhm.
clearly experiencing some type of wave in their life. What other ways can trauma show up? How else can trauma look?
Yes, I love this question because what it really feels like it hits on is what are the non-traditional ways that trauma can show up? And I'm
Yes.
like,
Yes.
bingo, that's the conversation that we need to be having.
Yeah.
Because there are children that overachieve to
Mm.
compensate for what they're going through at home. That doesn't mean that the trauma is any less for them. It doesn't mean that it has a less of an effect. It just means that the way that they express it is different. So, of
Mm.
course, you have the children that are angry, they act out, they withdraw, but you also have those overachieving children. Another one that people uh, miss is the one that's right in our face, the child that overshares.
Mm.
Because usually with that oversharing, they minimize what they're going through. So it's like, yeah, I was at home, this, and this happened to me. And then, you know, I got smacked in the face and da, da, da. And now is it time for recess? Right. Like they're right on to the next thing. And so what that signals to me as a therapist is this child has not really processed the trauma. They have actually minimized it to the point
Mhm.
where their brain has decided this is too much. We're not even going to process this. We're just going to state the facts and keep it going.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
you also have the child. This you see this come up early later, so like 10 to like 17. You see this. You have the intellectualizer.
Okay.
That is the one that people overlook as well because this child can make it seem like they're processing trauma. So they're able to say like, okay, I've gone through, for example, sexual abuse. I've gone through sexual abuse. It's affected me in this way, and this way, and my coping skills are this. And people were like, "Oh, that child gets it. They're processing. They're doing well."
Yeah.
Ever in therapy, those are the children that I have to say, "Hey, how does that feel in your body? You said you went through sexual abuse, but how does that feel in your body?
Mhm.
How does that make your tummy feel? What about your heart? Is your heart beating faster? And I have to move that trauma from their head to their body so that they can actually process it because emotional processing happens in the presence of someone else, usually a professional.
Mhm.
It doesn't actually get processed until you feel it. So those children are usually not feeling it, even though they're describing it perfectly.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, we have a lot I want to get to, but with that said, it sounds like trauma can look at, I mean, so many different ways. So how does a person know to reach out to that child? Like I said, you have some children that are very clearly going through something, right? But if you
Mhm.
have a child, like you said, that may overshare, and I'm assuming some basic things, or maybe actually the things that they're going through, or if you have someone that are the intellectuals in regards to that, how do you know which child to reach out to address? kind of take to the side?
Yes. Oh, I love these questions are awesome, by the way.
Oh,
So this is the reason that that's why people say have conversations.
mm,
We need to make it general. We need to make it broad so that it catches everybody. And that's part, I know we said we talk about the books a little bit later, but that's why I make my books. And that's why I don't make them too specific, because I want a kid to read it. And if they identify themselves, be able to tell somebody.
be able to share. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because with a lot of those untraditional ways that trauma manifests,
Yeah.
the child has to be empowered, educated,
Yeah.
then empowered to tell someone.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times we're not going to catch it if it's
Yeah.
not those, you know, I like to say, very expressive ways that trauma is happening. So that's
Right.
why conversation, exposure, and education is important.
Yeah, and being aware, right? Paying attention. I mean, for
Yeah.
myself personally, when I worked with children, I mean, some kids almost it was like they beckoned you, right? It was like they called for you, right? Through
Yes.
some type of pull. And I know it sounds kind of, you know, la la lolly, but I really believe that there were some kids that, in talking with them, they felt safe with me
Right.
or someone else, and they would almost like make eye contact in a way where you're like, I don't know what's going on or what they want to share with me or what they need to get off their chest, but they're calling to me. And so and
Mm.
in addition to what you just shared, I really encourage people to be observant, pay attention, trust our instincts, trust the gut, right? Trust those things that call us to say, you know what, there is something more here potentially. And at least ask those questions to create the space, right, for the child to feel comfortable to share.
Yes, and I also want to speak to um I am so proud of you. You say you're proud of me. I'm proud of you. Um
Oh,
you have always been, because she's known me since I was a kid. She has always given off the oral that she was a safe adult.
oh,
You've always, I don't know, but you've always felt trauma informed. Like, this person is going to show up, they're going to listen to me. And that's the importance of having trauma informed, safe adults around, just around children. Because, like you said, children will beckon to you. They'll be like, hey, I need to tell you something.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, thank you for being that way.
Oh, oh, you got me all. Okay. um, no, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Girl, you was not supposed to make me cry today. Um, I know, right? I know, right? So I want you to talk a little bit about how you got here. Like most of us that go into different uh service work or community advocacy or any type of I call it, yeah, service work. I'll just say service work. When we go
Yeah.
into these different type of fields or different ways to show up in the world, it's for a reason, right? Most of us
Mhm.
are children that are still healing, right, from things that happened in our past. And we really want to be a space for somebody else to not have to go through the same thing, right? And it's this idea that I want to show up as that safe person, right? I want to show up as that person that I feel like I needed or that I
Mhm.
desired and did not have. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are in this work.
So, what drew me to this work was my personal experience with childhood trauma. So, I was one of those non-traditional
Yeah,
uh, children. Sometimes people could tell because I was a little withdrawn, but
yeah,
most of the time I interacted well with other kids. I wasn't very aggressive. There were times where I was aggressive, but
for the most part, you weren't.
overall, yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell the things that I've gone through.
Yeah,
So my experience, just, disclosure, sensitive topics. I went through years of sexual abuse. It started well, I don't know when it started. I have a story on Tell Somebody, the page about childhood sexual abuse, and I don't know when it started, but I know that it ended when I was 8 years old,
okay.
and I told somebody. I built the courage to tell somebody, but that process was really hard to get to,
Yeah,
and um, I pretty much got pushed to a point where I had to tell somebody, or it was going to get worse. And
Yeah.
so that's what pushed me. My mom also struggled with mental illness. And unfortunately, which we see a lot, children that went through sexual abuse as a child, they end up getting reoffended as adults.
Mhm.
And when I went to college, I was also a victim of sexual assault.
Mm.
So having to process this level of trauma, trying to process it by myself, and then going to therapy and seeing how much that helped me, I was like, I already wanted to be a therapist, but I'm like, oh, now I know it works because I did it, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
I had a case manager; she was amazing, changed my life. So that's what caused me to get into therapy. What caused me to get into writing mental health children's books was while processing my trauma in therapy, I was introduced to writing as a
Mhm.
way to cope.
Yeah.
And as I was writing, I was like, I think I could write a book.
Mm.
Even better, I think I can make it about mental health because I, I know a lot about mental health and healing.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I wrote my first book, which was Tony and the Scary Thing.
Yeah.
And people received it well. And I was like, oh, I love this. This was so fun. It was so healing for me that I
Yeah.
wanted to keep doing it. So I literally fell in love with the writing process.
No, I love that. Writing is such a release. It allows you to be very brave and courageous, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
there's words that you don't actually have to say, but you can write them down.
Mhm.
And
Right.
when I was a kid, I wrote a lot of poetry. That was my way of kind of dealing with stuff that I was dealing with. I would write poetry, and it's
Mhm.
so funny too because one of my aunts sent me an old poem that I wrote when I was, I don't know, probably 8, 10, something like that. I don't remember. But she sent it to me in an email and it made me cry because
Oh,
it was so angry. I was so angry. But that was my way of sharing stuff that I felt that I needed to share. And I didn't feel like I had the words, but obviously I did because I wrote them down, right?
yeah.
But it does allow you a space to feel kind of free and courageous, and you have control over that, right? I think it's a part of the control aspect too, right? That you have control over the words that go in that paper. Nobody else can tell you what to write or what not to write. So I appreciate you for doing
You
that.
know how
Right,
to spell it right.
right, right. You don't have to spell it right. It can just be no punctuation is needed. And so, yeah, and we're going to talk more about your books here in a second. I want to talk about what would you tell maybe parents, right? Because statistically, we've learned that a lot of times childhood abuse comes from people that are very close to the child, right? A lot of times,
Mhm.
not all the time, but very often, it is someone that is, maybe a uncle, a brother, a sister. I mean, a aunt or a neighbor or the babysitter, right? Somebody that the parents trust, so to speak, for their children to be around. And so, what would you tell a parent to look for? And I know we talked about trauma signs, but for parents specifically, right? Because I don't know, as a parent myself, if one of my children told me that something happened, what I would consider to be kind of right under my nose, I would feel terrible, right? I would feel like I let them down. I would feel like, I don't know, I would feel a lot of emotions. And so, what would you tell a parent to kind of look for or to ask, maybe the questions to ask their child, like when they go to their aunt's house or their cousin's house or whatever it is? What would you kind of suggest for that?
Yes. So what I do for my parents, and just people that I interact with that have children, I always say be preventative.
Yeah.
Be solve the problem or try to solve the problem before it gets there, right? So
Yeah.
like it's kind of like we wait until it happens to then try and
React to it. Yeah. Be
right,
proactive.
right.
Yeah.
So once again, having conversations just like, hey, giving them body autonomy. If anybody hits you, that's not okay. If anybody touches you in certain areas, that's not okay. These are the forms of abuse. I want you to know that this should not be happening. It doesn't matter where you are. Just giving them the education of like bounds of what's right and wrong because children don't know that at first. They trust that all adults are safe until they learn something different.
Especially if the parent sends them to them, right? I mean, if your parent says go over to your cousin's house, you trust that the person is a trustworthy person. Now, and I want to add something before you go on to the next part.
Okay.
Can we also advocate that parents use the right words for body parts, which is vagina, penis? I mean, this whole idea of wee wees and lollipops and candy, whatever they like to call stuff,
Get rid of it, please.
it drives me insane. It drives me insane because what happens is that if a child says that somebody took my candy or took my whatever we like to call things or touch this or whatever it is, then we automatically assume that it's something else, even though we're the ones that taught them the language for those parts. So calling the things, right, and saying that is what this is called is so important to me, right? So then when we tell them, hey, they're not supposed to touch you on your penis or on your vagina, or they're not supposed to touch you on your behind, then if someone does it, they can actually say, somebody touched me here. You get what I'm saying?
Right. And just to speak further to that, I know that we want our kids to come to us if something happens. We want
Yeah.
that. In a perfect world, that is exactly how it will happen. But there's some times where a child will disclose to somebody other than you. Again, you were a very safe adult.
Yeah.
Like there could have been a time where I came to you and said it, just giving an example.
Sure.
And I've had children disclose to me that somebody touched their turtle.
Oh.
And I was like, because I'm trauma informed, I'm a therapist, I was able to get to the bottom of it. I was like, okay, somebody touching an actual turtle wouldn't cause this much distress. So I need you to tell me what you're trying to say. Like, that's what I mean by like, you need to give them the very real term of what it is so that if they disclose to someone else, the person is like, oh, okay, that's what this is. Yeah, it's time to report.
Right. Because somebody else is like, oh, they touched a turtle. And of course, I mean, we know too that if a child says, oh, somebody touched my turtle, as opposed to, this shame that comes with this revelation, because for some reason, even though they're children, they feel this shame about it, right? That is, they know in their soul like something isn't right, but they don't know the language, they don't know how to really share it, right? And so we can pick up on those context clues, but please teach them the name. Please teach them the name so they can just say it, and then we don't have to play detective to try to figure it out. If a child could just say, hey, they touched me here, and say the word, and then people can dig a little deeper. So go ahead though. I'm sorry. I just thought that's one of my
Yes, no, I'm happy you brought it up because it is definitely needed.
Yeah. But we were talking about also like what we can tell parents, to be a little bit more proactive as opposed to reactive.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I cut you off. I did that. You were talking about autonomy, and that's where you were at.
Yes, and I'm happy you said that because that is part of the prevention. Yes. Give them the real names for their private parts. Give them body autonomy, letting them know this is your body. Nobody has the right to just come up, smack you across the face. Nobody has the right to just push you down the stairs. Even if it's not sexual abuse, let them know, hey, this is my body. You're not allowed to just abuse it because you're angry. Having those conversations, exposing them to, resources and coloring sheets, all types of things that, reiterate what you've told them so that they are alone with other children, adults, teachers, because it's going to happen. They will know right from wrong.
Yeah. No, it's about empowering your children to self-advocate, so to speak, to be able to, be able to speak up for themselves. I think that's so important, to give children language. I think it's so important for us to talk to them with real words and not goo goo gaga. And I know people do that even to babies. I was always an advocate for speaking language to children, to give them words so that they can communicate properly for whatever they need, not just, abuse situations, but just in general, to be able to self-advocate. And I think that's important. So, oh, thank you, Melissa. She said she appreciates both of us saying what we said about, giving the proper language. That is so important to me.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yes. And so we talked a little bit about trauma. I mean, and like you said, it's so nuanced, it's so layered. so many things that we could be looking at in regards to that. What are some other ways that children can understand right from wrong? Because sometimes some parents do not talk to children about those things. Some people think that it is almost taboo. Some people think that, it's inappropriate to talk to children about
Mm-hmm.
sexual things. And so
Yeah.
how do we help children to self advocate if they are, or to be able to get the, I don't know what I'm trying to say, because I just think
I'm
that
hearing
sometimes parents do a disservice by not
you. Yeah.
talking about things, right? And so how do the children at 8 years old, I mean, that breaks my heart. I mean 5 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, 18, 25, like any age that somebody is violated, but a child, right, that cannot um fight off or self advocate is really disheartening to me. It really, really, really makes me sad. So, how do we equip children in the best ways? And I know you have your books. So let's go ahead and get to the books and talk about how those work and how, because I know some therapists use like children's play or different things. I don't know, but if a child does not have that resource, if they're not able to go to a therapist, or if the parents don't even know that it's a problem, how can a child help themselves? Right? How do they do it?
Oh,
Sorry, I'm all over the place.
no, it's such a good question because it's also sometimes a hard question to answer, but there are ways. So
Oh,
if the child does not have parents that talk about it openly, and they don't have that support at home, this is where one that's one way the village mindset really come breaking bad. Look at that. But the village mindset really
yeah,
comes into play. So those aunties, teachers, school counselors, even though they're not, like office-based therapists, but school counselors, coaches, um, uncles, any, people that are in the child's life, you have a glimpse of time to show them what is right, what is wrong, what a safe adult looks like.
yeah,
And sometimes, how can I put this? The kid doesn't really need to know. Um, they need to know what's right and wrong, but
sure,
the presence and engagement of a safe adult, just one
yeah,
safe adult in a child's life can change everything. There's a statistic about it that I can't think of off the top of my head, but the presence of a safe adult is enough to bring a child out of anything, because just coming to you or coming to another safe adult and saying, hey, this is happening, you can then implement what they need from that point forward. You
sure,
can show them what's right and wrong by not even talking to them,
yeah,
by just being who you are. They
yeah,
start to get the sense of what's right and what's wrong. And then to go back to who you were to me,
oh,
you you didn't even realize what you were doing. You showed me what a safe, responsible,
mm.
loving woman looks like.
Oh, Trayonna.
You did. You really did. And I would take different adults, or women specifically because I'm a woman, take
Yeah,
different women that behave, interacted with people, talk to me like you did, and say, okay, this is how I want to be.
mm,
Helped me to gauge, right from wrong. Like it really did. So
oh,
um
goodness gracious,
I don't want to underestimate
issues in here.
the,
Issues.
the presence of just one safe adult. So that's a whole thing. But
No, that's so important. Yeah, go ahead.
just also like having things that speak to children. So like TV shows, we try not to put them in front of screens too much. I know.
We do anyway though. These kids are glued to stuff. So go ahead.
The TV shows that they watch, get some ethical, safe TV shows. That does a lot for kids. They learn a lot in
Yeah,
those settings. Books,
yeah,
you do coloring books, however you can get the message out through a kid friendly outlet,
yeah.
it'll do it.
No, I think you know what I really first of all thank you for sharing that, and it really ah, goodness gracious, it really is a testament to what I strongly believe, not even just for myself, but just in general, that we don't know what seeds we're planting. Like we have no idea how we're showing up in the world from the perspective of somebody else, right? And that's why it is so important for us to be intentional with how we show up, right? Because we don't know. And I'm sure I'm a villain in somebody's story. I'm sure somebody, I mean, I'm sure that,
Mostly.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
I'm sure I
right.
am. Um, but it's like, it is so important for us to be so intentional because, especially for children, I appreciate what you share because we do have young adults, not young adults, but young people that watch our I mean young adults too, but young people that watch our stuff, right? They do pay attention to what we're doing. And maybe somebody that is 5 and 8 may not watch and kind of know these tools, but we do have high schoolers and middle schoolers that pay attention to this work. And so I appreciate you saying that because I do want them to know like they can always come to me about something, about anything really. But that in particular, because although I may not have all the resources or all the training or all the things, right, to be able to help them through that, I definitely will help lead them in the right direction, right? And I think that's why it's so important for us to have a village because all of us don't have all the answers. We do not, but we know people, right? We know things. We have
Right.
resources that we can get them to. So I want to talk about.
Oh, can I cut you off real quick?
No, please,
And
please,
one,
yes,
so just give you a practical example,
yeah,
just because of what I seen from you, and like other people, it would become in moments like, how would Miss Aaron respond to this?
mm,
Just based off your personality, off of what I know about you, how would Miss Aaron respond to this? Would she want me to speak up about this? Like, that's what I mean by the presence of just one safe adult. Because it's like,
yeah,
even when you're not there, they still know who you are. They can still gauge who, right and wrong based on your personality and what they've seen. So
yeah.
don't underestimate that, people.
Whew. No, we can't underestimate it. We also the opposite way, right? When we are being jerks and buttholes and I mean I could say a few different things, but when we are being that way to people, they also are watching, right? And they learn and they mimic. And sometimes, we know that people either go one or the other way, right? They either are just like you or they try to go the opposite way, right? You have people that become bullies because they watch their parents either bully other people or bully them, right? And then they become the bully. And so it's so important how we show up. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you for sharing that. I really, really do.
of
I want
course.
to talk about, I always want to talk about both sides of this because, and when I say both sides, I mean, we talked about some trauma and we could go a little bit deeper, but, I think people get the gist of what we're talking about. And it's, not your responsibility to share your whole experience, right? I mean, you share what you need to share. And I want to talk about the other part of this. What can healing look like? What can the healing look like? Because oftentimes we do talk about trauma. Trauma is a word that I mean, we use it all the time, right? Everything we
Right.
say trauma, trauma, trauma. But what does the healing look like? Because I mean, one reason why I asked you for this is because I think that you are, or I know that you are, a perfect example of what healing can look like. You are a perfect example. When you have gone through, and there's so many more layers to what you've experienced throughout your life. Um, and when a person has gone through that, I mean, I know when you go through things, sometimes people wonder how you can show up and still smile, how you can show up and still be there. I've been asked that, like, how in the world do you listen? Because I'm here for a purpose. I have a purpose, and,
Yes.
and I'm healing and I'm working through things and I'm trying to be honest and authentic with myself. What does healing look like for people who have been through different type of trauma? I mean, it could be all different type of things. What can healing look like? What can they do to get on that other side, so to speak?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say, therapy, right? Like, I gotta go ahead and say therapy, but um,
That's so
oh,
sweet. I know.
yeah, I am speaking facts.
Oh, mm,
so, and so obviously therapy, that's
yeah,
one way that you can heal from trauma. Not very many people know that you can begin the process of healing before therapy or without it. So that's one way,
Sure.
going processing your trauma in therapy. There's another way of movement. So that's a really good way to process therapy. So like dancing, there's somatics. I don't know if you heard about somatics.
Yes, yes, actually, yes.
Yeah, so it actually is very cultural. It goes back to like Indian dancing and like the back in Africa when they like dance around fires and community, like it's very cultural. I love it.
Yeah,
But somatics are really good for moving trauma through your body, moving it out.
yeah.
So we could, they got the tapping and like literal dancing, but that's the way.
Oh, yes, 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 yeah.
Yeah, then
It's
we
good for
got
our it's good for
oh,
everything. I mean, no, I'm saying it's good for our body. It's good for so many different things to lymph nodes, to move stuff around in that body to get things moving so it's not stagnant. But carry
right.
on. Yeah,
Yes, I love somatics. Then you got writing, so just the act of getting it out of your system and onto something else.
yeah,
Uh, this is for worry, but it also works for trauma. I tell some of my clients, I'm like, look, we're gonna take 10 minutes to worry about all that you can worry about. You're gonna write it all down, and
mm,
the things that
mhm,
you can fix, we're gonna go ahead and start working towards that. The things that we can't, we're gonna leave it on the paper.
yes,
It's the same with trauma, getting it all out, writing it all out. So we got therapy, we got somatics, move your body, and you got writing.
yeah,
The last one is not really talked about much, but being in a healthy and stable community,
yeah,
unlearning unhealthy traits,
yeah,
habits, again, being exposed to positive communities is
yeah,
another way to help heal from trauma. And then most of the time, we mix all of those together.
yeah, yeah,
And so these are ways that you can actually process trauma. And what it looks like practically is you start to trace your dreams, you become more optimistic. You usually, like I did, you give back to the community that you know is
yeah,
hurting.
yeah.
So there's a lot of life, there's a lot of light on the opposite end.
Yeah,
So there's
and it does not mean that you won't still experience maybe rage, anger, sadness, right? I mean, it still could be there. That does not mean that you are an unhealed person. To me, when we have different responses, it's what we do with the response, right? What we do with it is what kind of differentiates if we're healed and unhealed, right? And
it
so,
doesn't consume you.
what'd you say?
It doesn't consume you once you begin healed.
Oh, yeah, you can't. And I mean, that is a big thing for me. It's like I can't allow for any type of hate or things that have happened to me or people that have harmed me and hurt me to consume me. I just won't allow it. Like I'm actually very rebellious against that. And so I really work really hard to not allow it to consume me. And with that said, everybody does not have access to therapy. Right. I mean, we know that. And it's not because they don't want it sometimes. It's just they don't have the insurance or they don't have the transportation. I mean, there's so many different things, right, that could stop someone from going. So I'm glad that you mentioned some other things that also can help. And I think one of the big ones is having that community, having people that you trust around you, that love you, that will hug you when you need a hug, right? That will
Mhm.
allow you to kind of vent to them, right? And let it all out because sometimes that is its own therapy, because we don't always have the answers. I'm like, girl, I don't have the answers, but I'm gonna hug you through this. We gonna cry together. And sometimes that's another form, I would imagine, of kind of releasing and getting things out.
Yes. And I'm happy you spoke to lack of access to therapy because I am African American and that's the community that I pour into.
Yeah,
I am actually working very hard to try and increase access to therapy to the African American community because it is expensive. And
yeah,
I think as clinicians, we need to do better with just making it more affordable for people because there are some things that do have to be worked out with a clinician.
sure. Yeah,
And
yeah.
because of the history of African Americans in America, we got a lot that we're holding on to. And I feel as a nation, like sometimes we should get at least 10 sessions just for being black.
Oh, just
you know, just help us out a little bit. But
Oh, you are so so. Listen, let's get before our time is up. I don't want to miss this part. You are so funny. Um, let's talk about your books and a little bit more specifically. Let's talk about your published books. I mean, I'm so proud of them. I've seen your announcements for your books and just all. So show us. Can you have some that you can show us? And I gotta find a tissue.
Yes.
So while you look for that, I'm going to get my little snot rag here.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm going to let you kind of shine for a second. I want you to showcase your books and yeah, show us a couple of them.
Absolutely. So here we have Tony and the Scary Thing. All of my books are bibliotherapy books, meaning that they can be used actually in a clinical practice. Therapists can use them. They can also be used, at home, but they're considered bibliotherapy. Tony and the Scary Thing is about helping children use their voice to process stress and trauma. So this book is actually, and this was an Amazon bestseller for 3 weeks. So it held the spot for 3 weeks. We were so proud of Tony. This was my first book. And to go along with it, we have a workbook. So because I know stress and trauma is one of those topics that are harder to work through, I went ahead and I made, a little workbook to go a little bit deeper. Specifically for therapists, this has been beneficial partnering these two, but the book is just as effective. It has a little activity at the end, and the reason that I added the activity is because we didn't get to this, but trauma actually affects the part of the brain that is responsible for language comprehension, and it creates some barriers. So we try to get creative with how we allow kids to speak to us,
Yeah.
because drawing a picture can speak just as many words as them saying
Yeah, I've looked at some videos.
it.
I've gone down some rabbit holes and I've seen some things where a child will draw something that to me, I mean, I'm like, okay, and then the therapist breaks it down and then is able to get into some things with the child, and it's actually
Mhm.
remarkable. So I advocate for that. Even though again I'm not a specialist, I definitely will recommend someone to go and do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've used this in my sessions, and the things that kids, the colors they use, the shapes they use, all of that tells a story.
Wow. Wow.
Why I use that specific skill in this book. Um, we got Juju and the Worry Flu. Oh, she's up there too.
Yeah.
So this is about anxiety, and
Okay.
it's about helping kids actually know what anxiety feels like or looks like for kids. Because a lot of the times kids are like, oh, I'm just scared. And it's like, this breaks down what anxiety, how it can show up, and it gives you two skills. All of my books have skills too. I don't just leave you with the information, I give you a skill to work through with the kid.
Yeah.
And then we have another book coming soon that
Oh,
will be about, yeah, it'll be about sadness. I wrote it in honor of my cousin who passed away by suicide.
so sad to
So
hear.
yeah, that devastated our family. But I was called to action because I see the increasing suicide rates in our community.
I know it has been. I mean, we just had a girl in this area that I think she was 13, if I'm correct, that
Yep.
attempted, and I think she's on life support. I have not looked back to see where she's at right now, but I'm like 13 years old, and it has been so many children. I mean, the
Yeah.
suicide in itself has gone up. I mean, amongst adults, but the amount of children that are attempting it is heartbreaking. Quite honestly, it's heartbreaking. So.
Yes. And we don't know the correlation between sadness, depression, and suicide.
Mm,
I've been educating and letting people know like suicide is a side effect of untreated depression.
mm.
We got to start talking about these hard topics. And so we are going ahead and we're going to make a book about that. We're going to be very intentional. It is still for kids, so we're not going to dive into,
The adults and
suicide talk, but we're going to go ahead and address sadness and how do you deal with it. So I'm
you know, I
excited.
think that's important. You should come back and talk about that because I really think that I am definitely a person that believes in hard conversations. Like I think we should have them, and I don't think we have to make them hard, right? I don't think we have to
Right.
be afraid of reality. I mean, you know what I mean? Like this is
Right.
happening, and so this idea that we have to kind of cowtail and kind of, be afraid and tiptoe around real life things is mind boggling to me about certain things. I get the sensitivity part of it, right? I get that part.
Mhm.
But there are some things that we need to talk about. Like we shouldn't be afraid to talk about, like, basically regular body functions or things
Right.
that happen just biology, like it's biology, right? This is stuff that's going to take place in your body and in your life. And so there's some things that I think we should be very open about. And the reason why we're not, I don't understand. I don't understand why we don't talk about it. So
Still,
anybody that wants to talk about real things, I'm all for that, because I really do believe that it can save a life. I really do believe it can save people. Yeah,
it can. It
yeah,
absolutely can. I always compare it to the AIDS epidemic. Cause you remember back when like AIDS first happened, people were not talking about it. It was like you couldn't even say AIDS without people wanting to pass out. And now
yeah,
they got commercials about AIDS.
yeah, yeah.
And the
People
more we
were
talk
dying. Yeah, and I remember they would make it seem like they died from some kind of mysterious thing. Nobody would talk
to
about it. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that very vividly because I'm like, okay. And then years later, we realized it was AIDS, and then people were saying, okay. And now, like you said, it's very commonly discussed, which is a part of life. So why wouldn't we talk about it? So no, I'm
yeah,
all for it. I'm all for open dialogue because I truly believe there's always somebody out there that is begging, waiting for that lifeline. Like they are begging for it. And when we throw it out there and they realize there is somebody that cares enough to throw it, right? That cares enough to discuss it and bring light to it, bring language to it, it can literally save their life. So I think that's so important.
literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. So
Those
so
numbers come down the more we talk about hard issues.
I mean, there's a science behind it too, and people think that this is just kind of happenstance. There is a science behind releasing. Releasing is such a and how you release so many different ways, right? But there's a science behind that, and there's a science behind giving language to things that are happening in our lives, as opposed to acting like it's not. That's where sometimes anxiety and that kind of uh, destabilization comes from when we don't give language and we just try to keep it all inside. It's like, girl, I'm going through something here. I need to be able to discuss it. Can I discuss it with you or can I discuss it with the world? Can I write it down? Can I dance? Can I, however I get it out? It's so important for us to give people permission to do that. So I
Yes.
appreciate you for doing that.
Yes, the unlearning and relearning, the science behind it is called neuroplasticity.
There we go. See, I don't listen. I don't have the words, Trayonna. Listen, I don't have all the
I
words,
got
but I know. Yes, but see, I read things, and I know. I said I know I read something about that. No, I love it. Thank you for that. I want to make sure too, before we leave here, that we put up your information so people can get in touch with you if they want to
Yes.
purchase a book, if they want to maybe learn more from you. Do you do virtual sessions?
Not yet. The
Not
day
yet.
is
Okay.
coming.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. Just in case.
Yes.
Okay.
Through the, because I'm also honored to be an ambassador for the National Black Mental Wellness Corp. So through them, I will be doing some sessions. But, you know, as I grow, I will continue to do that on my own personal platforms.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's right. I just want to always give people different avenues and ways to get a hold to the people that are the change makers. So here is your information. If people want to, like I said, purchase a book, I'm going to get some. I mean, I'm curious to see what they look like. I keep seeing the ads. I'm like, I need to go ahead and buy that book so I can support you if for one, and then also read it and share it. I mean, because we still go into schools and work with schools. I mean, work with students, and so it's always nice to have extra resources and different things that, let me put this back up to make sure people can see it, especially people that watch the replay, they can be able to get a hold of you. But I want
Absolutely.
to say, yeah, thank you so much for sharing space. I mean, you were here before, and when you came before, you had just started. I mean, you had literally just started your journey with that. Yes, yes. And so to see how you've grown and what you've learned and what you're doing is beautiful. I just encourage you to keep sharing, keep creating, keep finding ways to touch children, right? And to be able to impact them in a way that is so beneficial, and let them be that person that, they remember when they get older and say that person was a safe space for me. Yeah, I think it's
Yes.
so.
I'm praying. I'm trying to be like you.
Oh,
See?
No, I love it, man. I'm so proud of you. I really am. I just every time I see stuff that you're doing, I'm super proud and just happy to see that you are becoming everything that you should be, right? I mean,
Thank
sometimes when things happen in our lives, it can stifle, right? It can get people kind of off where their purpose, and we have to fight through that. You have to fight through that to get to where you know you're supposed to be. So I appreciate you, and I'm so happy that you continue to fight and push and go and move. Yes, I'm very proud of you. So, well, I appreciate you for being here with us today and sharing. And we're going to have you back to talk a little bit more, especially when your next book comes out, so we can hear more about
you.
that and continue to help children. It's so important. And I just want to leave before I leave, I want to say to the people that are watching, advocate as well. Be that safe space. Do not push a child away or turn a child away when they're trying to share something with you. Do not dismiss it as them just being silly or being funny or looking for attention.
Mhm.
Please listen to what these children are saying, because children really do understand more than we think they do, right? They just sometimes don't have the proper language, yeah, or courage to share it all the way. But be that safe space. So thank you, Trayonna. Hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for being here and continue to keep doing the great work that you're doing. I love you, and I just appreciate you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right.
So good to have you.
Bye.
Bye.